tell us about this amazing story of growth.
So that's where my sales confidence really soared because I found that a lot of smaller wins helped me build my kind of sales acumen. Shout out to the team I worked with at that time. They know who they are if they're listening. Because we really built a culture. And culture, I think, is something that you can define, but you can't artificially create.
Welcome, everybody, to the Reach Forward podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hederick. This is episode 2, and this is the first episode in which I have a special guest. So today, we are going to be talking with a close friend of mine, a former work colleague. Her name is Amber Hinson. Now, I'm super excited for you all to hear her stories, have us talk. She has a lot of great insight in the fitness industry. She has definitely had some great growth within the fitness industry, and I'm just excited for you to hear her story today. My guest today is Amber Hinson. Amber is somebody that I have had a working relationship with for a long time. We were colleagues. We've stayed in touch after, and I am so happy to have her on the show today. She is my first guest for the Reach Forward podcast. So, Amber, thank you so much for being on today.
Of course, Josh. Thank you so much for having me. When I heard about what you were doing, what you were looking to impact, I messaged you on Instagram and raised my hand and I was like, listen, Josh, totally gonna support this. And if you do need a guest, I don't know what I could speak about or what topic, but just happy to contribute in any way possible. So thank you so much for thinking of me.
Absolutely. When you reached out to me with that message, the light bulb went off in my head right away, just because I know your story from the company that we worked at together. Again, we're going to get into it today, but, there was a time when, you were pretty much running the company and during a challenging time. So again, we're going to get all into that. I'm so excited to talk about it. The biggest thing that I'm excited about is that my listeners get to hear your story, because I do feel like your story is going to make impacts in multiple areas of people that are in the fitness industry, are consumers of the fitness industry. So I'm just very excited to get things going. With that said, let's just do a little bit of an introduction of you. What really is the big reason why you got into the fitness industry, and how did you get to the company that we worked at together?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it all started in the womb. No, I'm kidding. No, I grew up in a great community by a really supportive family, and whenever I think about like competitiveness is really what drove me early on. So I'm thinking back to those days in my neighborhood when we're playing cops and robbers or tag, and I was one of the fastest kids in the entire neighborhood, boys and girls. So from that spurred this competitive, like, I'm going to play sports, I'm going to win. I want to really kind of dive into what does it mean to push myself? What does it mean to contribute to a team and be a part of a team? So through that, I played lots of sports through middle school, high school, a little bit in college. But academically, was like, what do I want to study? So I actually started as an English major in college, realized I can't be Sandra Bullock from the proposal. I wanted to be this like high-end New York City editor. I was most likely going to be an English teacher or something at that time, but that's when I decided to switch my major to exercise science. So the reason I switched was because if I'm going to study something, let me study something I'm familiar with. This means I might get to work in athletics or work with athletes. And throughout my degree is when I started to do internships, work at Campus Rec, and really fall in love with the clientele. So it became less about myself and athleticism and my relationship with athletics, and more about I really love people. I'm a people person. That whole team dynamic of what I loved with sports came from I wanted to be around people. Me, Josh, I'm a people person. I'm really outgoing. So the fitness industry was a natural fit for that kind of outlet of how can I be in a place where I can wear tennis shoes every day, where I can be myself and positive every day. And um, then I really learned how impactful it is to really change lives. And I know we'll get into that, but that's kind of how I've progressed. In college, all your professors are like, you're going to get into physical therapy, and they're really pushing you towards that kind of clinical side of exercise science and kinesiology. I went right into personal training. I was like, listen, I don't want to necessarily, for me, work with the injured or those who needed rehabilitation that send them on their way. I wanted to work with folks like my mother, who, yes, she's, just the general population, of who is the average American and how can we better their lives with fitness. So got into personal training right away after college. And I always say, when I applied for this personal training job, I was applying to any position at any gym at that time. But the company that we worked for turned it into a career. So I'm forever grateful for how that turned into so much more than just a personal training job.
Yeah, and I can completely understand the, kind of everyone's saying like, oh, go into physical therapy, go into clinical and everything like that. And I'm the same way as you. I feel like it was like, no, I really want to make sure that I'm like helping people on a daily basis. And personal training was the one spot that I was really more interested in. And yeah, I feel like there's always going to be certain avenues that you take, but you really do know like what you're trying to get into when you're getting into the fitness industry. Like, there might be multiple options, but there's always one that you're super interested in. So I can absolutely agree with you on what your mindset was. And like you mentioned, you got a personal training job, and that job actually turned into pretty much this growth, climbing the ladder, if you will say, of this
Yeah.
company. And let's start there. Tell us about this amazing story of growth, climbing the ladder from starting as a personal trainer to the end spot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny when you use the phrase climbing the ladder because it sounds so corporate.
Yes.
It sounds so like step followed by step, followed by promotion, followed by step. But I guess objectively that's what it was. My growth started as a personal trainer at a gym where it was one-on-one training, very traditional model. Thankfully, we were salary at that time, which is not very common in the fitness industry, as you
No,
know.
it's
It's a
not.
lot of you get paid when your client shows up, and if they don't, well, you have to build your clientele. So I was really grateful that our model was, hey, you're full time, we'll give you the clients. You just show up with your programming, show up for your clients, make sure that your first session is as good as your last. So that was a really great place to kind of build my craft, build my clientele, build, my kind of persona when it comes to who I was as a trainer. I always reflect back to my first day, my first week of work. Even with that supportive environment and that supportive team, I wanted to quit. I felt so in over my head, and that's when I reflect was just being new. So, first lesson out of that job was like, you're all for someone who generally was good at things, a student, you know, competitive, wanting to win, feeling like I was new, feeling like I didn't know what I was doing out the gate was really hard. So after the second week, though, talking with my team felt a lot better. And then, of course, that progressed for about a year. I was a personal trainer, working with a team, working under management, and just learning as much as I could. After a year in that position, I moved up to lead trainer. So that position at the time, as you know it as well, Josh, was managing a team of trainers. So same model where it didn't really involve sales yet, but it was more so I oversaw the quality of the service. And in the fitness industry, service is what you're delivering. So in that case, the sessions, the experience, the events for the clients to get them to want to stay in the
Hmm.
service. And I really love that position. That one's really special to me because that's when I got to really marry what became my fitness passion for the clients with my passion for leadership. So it was really cool to kind of navigate a team of trainers in that regard.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I really loved about the position. And I mean, it's a position I've been doing for a while too. And yeah, I feel like it's the leadership that you bring, but also just watching others grow. Giving again, I'm a natural coach, and love the feeling of having others like grow with my advice and my kind of guidance. So yeah, that's definitely something that I got excited about every single day waking up and going to this company. Now, I will say also, I had a little bit of the same feeling when I started with the company too. It's just, I said this in my first podcast, like, I thought I knew a lot about the fitness industry going into this company. Oh, I did not know as much as I thought I did. And I was like, whoa, am I like even really qualified to be here? I mean, I was always assured of myself. And you know what? It was just keeping with it, just getting used to the way things, were done there. And yeah, well, please continue on with the journey and just continue on with it.
Of course, yeah. And one little note about, I think, the format of like trainers, lead trainers, allowing a team to focus on service is that if when you have a team that does sales and a team that does service, both can become really, really good at what they do, as opposed to, I think, a lot of other models where it's like, you're going to be a trainer and you have to sell as well. And I do think the two marry very well eventually, but for maybe those beginner positions or if are new to training, finding those positions where you can really lean into your craft because then the sales part becomes easier, which does segue into my next move. So about a year after working as a lead trainer, at that point I did was awarded lead trainer of the year in the company. I was very, very proud of that award. Every year we went to this kind of like conference of sorts where they recognize different positions, and that was an amazing, amazing accomplishment. I was really proud of my team and what we had done and just how much we had grown the service side of the gym. And then we actually acquired another location, about an hour and a half from our current location, so another gym. And what's interesting about that acquisition is that it was an established business that we were the new, our company was new ownership coming in. So at first I was offered the personal training manager position there. This was the sales side of things now, but I was intimidated. I was like, no, no thanks. I'll stay here in my comfort zone. I'm good at what I do. Obviously, I got the accolade for that. I'll just stay here, thanks. 2 or 3 months went by and they still hadn't filled this position out there. So that's when I was like, you know what? Why not me? I do enjoy change. I do enjoy a challenge. This was kind of out of my comfort zone, but it involved me moving. Me and my fiance at the time got up, moved across the state in a sense, and I took on the personal training management position at this new location. And I am forever grateful for that decision because that was that was even more uncomfortable than me starting as a personal trainer because one, sales can be really challenging. Anyone who has been in sales knows that. Especially if it doesn't come natural to you. I'm kind of a people pleaser, so I was like, oh my gosh, this is so challenging. I was also in my early 20s at the time, and this new gym and its demographic was, a little bit of the older population. So they looked at me as who's this young girl that's going to come in and sell me personal training. So I had a lot of imposter syndrome at that time, coming in as kind of the sales manager over there, and I was learning how to sell altogether. So that was a really challenging time where I went from being on the floor, being a coach, leading consistent clients every single day who I really got to know, into a sales manager where you're having new faces all the time, where you're having to go through assessments and convince them to buy your product or your service, while at the same time being fed all this feedback that I was young and didn't know anything. So that was quite a challenging year there. Lot of doubt, a lot of imposter syndrome. But I was so thankful for my management at the time because they just really lifted me up. They were like, lifting me up in every way you can imagine with, teaching me the fundamentals, telling me it was going to be okay, telling me it was normal. That validation
Mhm.
and empathy of like what you're going through and how you're feeling makes sense. But know that those voices aren't who you are. We do believe in you and we know you can make an impact there.
Yeah, the management side of things, or your leaders, they're so important when you're making that shift. Especially, I reflect well with you with being a people pleaser. Like I'm definitely somebody that like really goes above and beyond for my clients and for customers and for people. So I totally understand. Even for me, having to really shift a little bit more of a focus on sales. I remember kind of like you, I went to a different location in this company, and I had to take on a little bit more of a sales role, as well as leading a training program. And it was my leadership that helped me really find my own wings, but also lead me when I feel like the wings are starting to get clipped a little bit. It's so important, especially when you're doing something that you feel uncomfortable with. Like you mentioned,
Right.
just exactly like you mentioned, it was very uncomfortable. It was unnatural. But eventually you get to a point where you're like, no, I found exactly what I can do, and I found exactly what works for me. And then that's where the success happens.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when my mindset really shifted, like yes, leadership was helping me, but I was still being down on my way home. Like, am I cut out for this? And should I move? Should I like what can I do to get out of this? Because I'm obviously not good at it, is what I kept telling myself. maybe it wasn't at the time. I mean, sales are objective. You kind of see your quotas, you see your goals, and I wasn't producing. But thankfully, because leadership believed in me and believed in who I was and the potential that I had, they moved me over then to the franchise manager, which was in this company more so just like the membership manager. So more so the front end sales of giving tours of the gym to a lot higher volume actually, but a little bit low barrier to entry because this was, maybe 50 to 80 bucks a month as opposed to the hundreds of dollars that PT packages were worth. So that's where my sales confidence really soared because I found that a lot of smaller wins helped me build my kind of sales acumen as opposed to, I think, the PT side of things, at least at that time. And that's when it clicked. And what's funny is that during that time, we switched from just regular membership sales to selling training at point of sale. So eventually I even bloomed into selling those PT packages anyways, but I gotten some wins under my belt that really helped. And I kind of got to prove to that gym and that demographic that I may be young, but I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to take care of you and the clients and this gym. So it's not me versus you in these sales conversations or in this relationship of manager and customer. It's us versus how I can help you and what the problem is and what barriers you're facing. So that was a big mindset shift for me that I think kind of being pushed even to a more uncomfortable position of the membership manager really helped me grow into. So then I really started to hit my stride. I loved that position more than I ever thought I would. As a trainer, lead trainer, if you said, "Hey, Amber, you want to pop over to the membership manager?" I would have said, "No way. I'm so comfortable out here on this turf with these clients." But looking back, I really loved that position a lot.
What do you feel like was the one thing about that position that made you fall in love with it so much?
Yeah, it was because I love people. I got to see, like, instead of, maybe 50 or 80 clients that, yes, I got to build a deep relationship with. That membership management position was 500 to 1,000, if not more, members that I was trying to get to know, trying to build relationships with. Bring in your friends, bring in your family, finding sales through that way through referrals. But I'll never forget, it was this great sale week and I had a whole bunch of new members come in and I like raised my hand on a manager's call and I was like, why don't we write thank you notes? Like they made a big commitment to their fitness and they chose us over everywhere else. And I took the time every week to write out thank you notes to those members. And just found other ways to kind of give back to that membership community. I didn't want to be a faceless gym where you come and work out. I wanted to say hi to you when you walked in. I wanted you to maybe get a recipe off of the community board or, join the event that we have coming up on the weekends. We started hosting happy hours and stuff at that time because I wanted it to be more than just a gym. So I kind of found an outlet that wasn't just, I wasn't defining it as just sales anymore. I was now saying, the sales will come when you create a community and experience that people want to be a part of and referrals will come with that as well. So that kind of formed a lot of my basis for my business philosophy that carried me into every single leadership philosophy thereon.
Yeah, and I feel like that position is so important, because like you said, you're the frontline worker. You're the person that everybody sees when they come into the gym first. The majority of time, you're the first person that people see when they come into the gym. So it is important to have that, that friendliness, that people person mentality. Again, there's a lot of great salespeople out there that go into the fitness industry. They don't have the people person mentality, and it's tough because they may get you through the door, but as far as keeping you in that
Mhm.
location, bringing you into the community. Again, that's a big thing we talk about in this podcast is community equals success. If you have somebody in your office, that is the first person that people see and they are a shining light of community and exactly what the community is, almost a reflection of what people are joining. People are going to stay because it's exactly what they signed up for.
Absolutely. And I do have to say, I shout out to the team I worked with at that time. They know who they are if they're listening. Because we really built a culture. And culture, I think, is something that you can define, but you can't artificially create. It has to be how you show up every single day in and out, what you tolerate as well. So thankfully, as kind of membership manager, it was formally the leader, where I could drive the culture, but the team was all in it with me. I mean, they saw what we were building, they saw how we were crafting the culture from one of new ownership and who are these new owners and why are they changing everything and who is this new, PT manager they brought in that's young into, oh, this is actually blossoming into so much more than it's ever been. So I really have to shout out the team who worked we all worked together towards that.
Yeah, I remember that team. That team definitely what because I remember the team that you had there. Uh, I remember when I first came into the company. I noticed exactly what you're talking about with the enthusiasm, the
Yeah.
culture that you had. You could definitely see it. And again, this was just me because again, you were in a different state than I was, and I could see it even over our Zoom meetings. That Oh yeah, that you could just tell there was a special sauce in your
Yeah.
location that made you unique, but also made you again enthusiastic, and that's going to create a culture of positivity, of community. So I do remember that. I also do know that a lot of the people that were on your team, they were day makers. They were
Hmm.
100% day makers, and that is so important to have people that go in and no matter what's going on in their life outside of the gym doors, when they come in, they are putting on that day maker mentality. And I know that's actually an episode I want to talk about later on this podcast, is because I feel like the day maker mentality and like just the whole sense of being a day maker is important for people in the fitness industry to absolutely adapt to and absolutely have in their like mindset vocabulary. So
Yeah.
we talked about, the personal trainer, we talked about lead trainer, we talked about, the membership side. Now let's get on to the part where you are pretty much running locations,
Yeah.
running the company. What was that next step like? How did it happen and what was it like?
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of blossomed very organically into all these mindset shifts I was going through at this new location. So this was a location that had a lot of potential. Under my tutelage, it started to become one of our top performing locations out of about a dozen at the time. So then, I got leadership's attention. This young trainer over a few years has now become one of our top performing gyms overall under her leadership. What is going on? How is she operating? Which I was very, very thankful that they were curious about me. They believed in me. And as you kind of mentioned with the culture, I truly believe in lifting everyone up around me. So like I'm going to see the best in you, believe the best in you, and I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt 10 times out of 10. So I found that around me, my team members started to perform better because they knew I believed in them. So with that kind of leadership philosophy, I was promoted to then a regional manager. So this was kind of our East Coast region where I oversaw about 3 locations at that time. And now we're talking traveling. We're talking starting to manage locations from afar. So I kind of started as like a, smaller regional manager at that time. And then that was wonderful. A lot of the same philosophies of what I've learned, yes, but I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to ask you, how would you go about this? Knowing your customer, knowing your location, how can we help elevate everyone around you and elevate the customer? So that's when I really learned the difference between a coach and a manager. Because a manager comes in to manage. Here's how you do it, here's when you do it by, and then report back to me on how it went. As opposed to a coach, I believe, and this is what I was taught, is that, trust the people that you're overseeing, trust they know the answer within them. It's your job as a coach to unlock it. So I really brought that coach philosophy into my regional management. So that was challenging as well because now it wasn't just my direct team, people that I saw every day. It was a new challenge where it was okay. I have a team 3 states away that I only see every 6 weeks that I have to fly to. How do I manage them remotely? And the other location that I used to work at, how do I come in there and coach them when that's not my location technically anymore? So that was wonderful. I love a challenge. I love a change. That's probably an underlying theme if you haven't heard already. I have a lot of confidence in myself to figure things out. I testament to my parents for raising me to believe in myself because that has continued to serve me throughout my entire life is, you know what? It'll be okay. We will figure it out because I'm smart, I'm capable, I'm curious, I can do hard things. So then COVID hit. And this was wow. It was
It
like,
was
I
a tough
mean,
time. It was a tough time. I will 100% agree with you that being in that company, and getting shut down, it was it was traumatizing.
Yeah. Thankfully, even though I was like one of multiple regional managers at that time, leadership was already starting to see me as one of their. I was awarded, best regional manager at the previous conference. So this is now another recognition that I very much appreciate and was very humbled by that I was nominated for and saw that they saw that in me. So I was kind of being seen as one of the senior leaders of the company at that time. So when COVID hit, I was kind of like brought to the forefront, I would say. I was the one that leadership was like, hey, Amber, what should we do? How should we go about this? Because again, I had a big reputation of like figuring things out. I'm just like, all right, we don't have all the answers, but how can we get the answers?
Exactly.
So throughout the COVID process, I was then moved into kind of that vice president position where I became right hand to our CEO. So it's kind of vice president, COO, it's been called a lot of different positions. I'm not huge on titles. They're important because of resumes and when you need to show up for the customer and those kind of things. But generally, I kind of shy away from titles if I need to. I think they sometimes create some hierarchy that doesn't need to be
I
there.
agree.
But that was my position. I was right hand to our owner. So that's when, yeah, I was running the company. They trusted me to just go figure things out, do the best by the team. So then for COVID until I left in 2023, that was my main position. So the position I held the longest was really running the day-to-day operations, the team. And shoot, I mean, yes, it was a larger franchise like group, but by no means small. So this was everything from hiring to firing to onboarding to strategy to sales goals to running conferences and all of that. So I really built a lot of skill within there that has translated beyond the direct fitness industry as well.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, just think about that experience. Just think of that growth. The one question I want to ask you before we talk a little bit more about that time during COVID, because there's something I really want a lot of listeners to understand as far as adapting, as far as making shifts to make sure that you're taking care of community, because then it will take care of your business. So before we get into that, with all this growth, with all this climb up the ladder, like we talked about, what do you feel like is the best advice you could give somebody who feels like they may get into a position or they want to strive to be in a position like that, where they are going into a company fresh out of college or fresh into a new industry, and they want to have that mentality to hopefully be in the trajectory that you had? If you had to give one advice to my listener or listeners that would like to go on that trajectory, what would it be?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did think about this as far as like with all of this, I learned a lot. What would that advice be? Um, Confidence and curiosity. Because confidence can turn into cockiness if you're not curious. So having the confidence of, I know what I bring to the table, I know who I am, I know what value I bring, and I'm going to show up authentically and genuinely as myself, and people will see that. People will see that. But if you're not curious, it's going to come across as my way or the highway, or, this is how we do things around here. As opposed to when you have that confidence of, hey, I know who I am, but the curiosity of, but how do we do things here? Tell me about you. Tell me about your experience, especially maybe when I moved into regional management. I don't know your gym. Tell me about your gym. What makes it special here? What makes you special? What makes you tick? When you've been successful in the past in your position, what's worked well? When you weren't, what support were you not getting? So, yeah, the confidence of I know I can help you with the curiosity, but how can I is, I think, what really shaped my leadership philosophy. And then, the going up the ladder or the promotions was simply because I didn't have to boast about myself. My team did it for me because they really respected me as a leader and enjoyed my leadership. And that's hard for me to say because I do like to practice humility and I don't like to talk about myself too much. But that's what I've heard time and again. And I have to thank that team so much for just believing in me, especially when I was new and didn't know what I was doing. But I knew that we had the answers within our team. And it was my job as a leader to unlock those answers. But it would have been hard if I didn't have the confidence to do so, because we all know insecurity shows when you fake it until you make it, or when you think you have the answers but you don't, and it shows up as cowardice.
Yeah, I will double down on the confidence and the curiosity that you showed as a leader. Because again, I am one of those team members that was, working in the company while you were leading, while you were, vice president. And yeah, confidence. I always felt like whenever there was something said or whenever there was a decision being made, I had full confidence in you knowing exactly the best direction for for the company. But what I loved about your leadership was the curiosity, because I felt like you did so well with the curiosity that you almost allowed myself and others almost lead by our own example. Help, like you almost allowed us to lead ourselves. But you were the one that planted that like seed to grow and to lead. I never felt like there was a time where you were almost saying something that was trying to like direct me towards something. Again, like never once did I feel micromanaged by you. And I am not somebody that likes to be micromanaged. Like it really actually shrinks me as somebody to lead myself. I almost get lost. But you,
Mhm.
when you mentioned about curiosity, I smiled, because that is exactly what I felt like you always did as a leader. You always were curious on what is the best way for Josh to be the best sales? What is the best way for Josh to be the best service? That type of stuff. And you did it with curiosity. And yes, you were always very humble. Absolutely. I feel like there were rare times that you, tooted your own horn or, said your own accomplishments. But I also feel like the whole company itself was very much surrounded by people that were very, very humble. And maybe that's
Mhm.
one thing that made us very successful, is that we fed into each other and allowed ourselves to grow, because we never brought us down with, being cocky or being judgmental. And,
Mhm.
and, yeah, that could be one reason why we were so successful. And again, it takes leadership like yours and that type of mentality to get us there.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, thank you.
absolutely.
It was definitely a highlight going through this experience and reflecting on it. So appreciate
Yeah.
it, Josh.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this episode. I had such a great conversation with Amber that we actually went an hour long. So I decided I'm going to split this episode into two parts, just so that you can really focus on the stories that we're talking about, not have it go too long where you kind of lose track or lose concentration. So I hope you enjoyed this first episode. Amber and I had a great discussion about her growth in the fitness industry, and I loved the story that she told all of us about her rise and her growth within that company in the fitness industry. Part 2 will be released next week. The subject: working and running a company through COVID, through the pandemic. You won't want to miss this episode, everybody. Tune in next week for part 2.